All right, welcome back. So before we get into the AI content, there's a couple topics I want to cover. And the first one is the basics of search engine optimization. Now, I've been doing SEO for almost 20 years now, coaching for over 10. And if you're one of my students, you know that I like to keep things simple. Because at the core of things, SEO really is simple as far as how they determine where you're ranked. Okay, and it comes down to your on-page SEO plus your off-page SEO equals where you're going to rank. Very simple, right? A little more complicated once you know, you start getting in there, but the core concept is very simple as on page plus off page equals where you rank. So the common kind of comparison is what matters more. And I think this is really a dumb argument because on page SEO is actually very easy to do. Okay, I've always taught that you keep it simple, you focus on a few core things, which I'm going to show you in this video, and really your on-page SEO is going to be about as good as it can be. Of course, there's always like very little adjustments you can make, but if you focus on the core things I show you, like 99% of your on-page SEO is good to go, okay? And if you spent like days or weeks kind of shifting other things with your on-page SEO, you're going to see virtually no change in your rankings, okay? Basically what it comes down to is get your on-page right as far as what I'm going to show you, and then from there, everything else comes down to your off-page SEO. So when people talk about what matters more, you could say on-page matters more for extremely easy keywords, but as the niche gets tougher, off-page SEO gets more and more important, right? So for a super easy niche, or a super easy keyword, on-page SEO, you could say, is like 95% important, whereas off-page SEO is like 5%. Okay, but that's usually for keywords that aren't even being searched for. As you move on down that kind of line, getting towards more competitive, on-page SEO gets less important. Off-page SEO gets more important, right? So if you're talking about like a very hard niche, on-page SEO is like 5% importance, whereas off-page SEO is like 95% importance. So again, as you move down that scale towards the harder niches, which is, what more where we're going to be most of the time, off-page SEO is far more important because everyone has the same on-page SEO essentially at that point. Maybe some have like a little better here, a little better there, but overall, everyone else's on-page SEO is kind of matched. So it all comes down to, okay, well, who's linking to them and how much authority do they have? So if you're aware of that, that's important to understand. That will help you understand that just not spending like tons and tons and tons of time on your on-page SEO will save you so much down the road, right? Just get the extreme basics down for your on-page SEO. Don't worry about too much more there. Then you just focus on the off-page SEO, and that's the major factor, okay? So let me just show you an example of this. Now, I apologize for the cuss words you're going to see. This is a test that I did for a site a long time ago. I wanted to see if they would allow my site to rank with a cuss word in it. I had the F word in it, and they did. Okay, if we search for Landenberg SEO, which is a town I used to live in that has like 10,000 people in it, so like no competition virtually. If we scroll down, you'll see the number one company is LandenbergSEOagency.com. They're ahead of me. I'm at number 2 here with my site, but what you'll see is I have no links. They have 2 links, okay? So we essentially have the same on-page SEO, right? Like I have keywords in my title, in my domain, like kind of similar on-page SEO as far as like how much content I have, how much keywords are in my content and all that. They have Landenberg SEO in their title, in their domain. Very similar on-page SEO. They're beating me out because they have 4 links, okay? When SEO is very similar, it really comes down to, okay, well, whose links are better? And that's a case here where, yeah, like on-page SEO did 95% of the work for me, but to do the other 5% and to get to that number 1 spot, I would need to do a couple links to overcome that. Now, in a hard niche, the difference is going to be, okay, I'm going to be like number 1,000, right? I'm going to be ranked like 1,000th. I'm going to be on like page 100 in Google. To get to page 1, I'm going to need like thousands of links and a very hard link, right? So the scale just slides up. My on-page SEO in that hard case was a 5% importance because it just gets me on the map. Everything else from 5 to 100% is all links, okay? This case right here, where it's a very easy niche, on-page SEO did 95% of the work, okay? And, put me at number 2. To do that final 5%, I'd need a couple links, all right? So that's how SEO works. It's a combination of on-page plus off-page. On-page is important, but as you get to the harder niches, everyone kind of has very similar on-page SEO, so it really comes down to the off-page, okay? Now, I will give you some things to focus on to make you a little better than the competition if you just focus on these core things, but generally, most people are going to have a very similar on-page SEO, and it's going to come down to your link, all right? So let's go back to our sheet here, and we're going to go to our on-page focus. Now, for on-page focus, there's really like 5 different things that I focus on. Okay, so number 1 is keyword in domain or URL. Now, keyword in domain is obviously if you can get it and you're starting a new site and it makes sense, it does give you a lot of SEO credit. Okay, especially as you start getting more links, it starts really like compiling an effort as far as on-page SEO. The next most important place to get to a keyword after domain name is an inner URL, right? So if I just had like SEOagency.com/Landenberg SEO, that's an inner URL. That's like the second most or the second biggest on-page factor tied with the title, okay? So the biggest on-page factor is having your keyword in your domain name, if it's possible. If not, you just put it in the inner URL. The next one after number 1, so I really should put number 2 should be title URL because these are kind of tied as far as importance. So number 1 is keyword in domain. The second most important spot is keywords in your title or your URL. If you go back to our example here, we have them in both places. Okay, we have them in the domain name, which is the number 1 most important place, domain name, and also in the title. That's why we're the top 2 ranking sites there. If you go look at the competition for this keyword, so if I put Landenberg SEO in quotes, Google's going to tell me exactly how many sites out there have this exact term somewhere on their page. If I hit enter, there's 7 results. Okay, and out of those 7, 1, 2, because this is my property here. 2 of the 7 are my properties. Okay, so there's only 5 properties on the whole internet that have Landenberg SEO exactly somewhere on their page that Google has found. That's why having on-page SEO dialed in does 95% of the work, because there's no competition. Okay, now if you did something like Miami SEO, never going to work. Okay, your on-page SEO in this case is going to take care of like maybe 10% of the effort, whereas the other 90% you're going to need to do with the linking, because this is a lot more competitive niche here. Right, but if you go to number 1, look who's ranking number 1, a company that has Miami SEO in the domain name, in the title. They have it in the most important places. Of course, it then comes down to links, and that's kind of more advanced. We want to keep this basic, but I'm just trying to give you examples to show you how SEO works. All right, so the most important place you can have it is in the domain name. If you can't get it there, no problem. Put it in the URL, and then, of course, you always want to have it in the title. Then you want to have keyword variations in your H tags, okay, which is like your kind of bigger text on your page. My next rule, so my 4th rule, is don't over-optimize content for keywords, if anything, under-optimize. What I mean is, so back in the day, people used to do something called keyword stuffing, where if you had like a 1,000-word article, they would put their keyword in, which in this case is Landenberg SEO. They would make sure Landenberg SEO was in there like 30 times. Now, anymore, you don't want to do that because that's just going to hurt you. If anything, I say under-optimize. So like a 1,000-word article, I do something like maybe have it once or twice in there, right? So just a couple times, and that's usually enough. As long as you have it in there once, you're good to go, because having it in these places is really the main focus for us, okay? Trying to do too much in your content as far as like percentages, for keyword percentages, is a waste of time. Just try to keep it low, go on a lower scale so you don't get penalized for over-optimization. All right. The last thing I focused on is set the content length and formatting similar to those sites on page 1. And I do the same thing with my H tags, really. So when I want to go rank for a keyword, let's say that is Miami SEO, I'm going to go really analyze the number 1 guys. Okay, I want to really analyze their on-page SEO as far as how much content do they have on their homepage. Okay, they don't have a ton, so I don't need a ton. How many times do they have the keyword in their homepage? Let's look up for Miami SEO here. They have a 24, which for me is too much. I don't like it that much. I'm not seeing 24. Where are they getting 24 from? Let's go down. I don't know where they're finding all of these. Oh, okay. They're getting it from this tweet here, which probably isn't coming into their on-page SEO. Most of the Miami SEO on their page is in that tweet. Okay, so they really have it once, twice, and then that's a link, so that really doesn't count. So they really have it twice in their content. Okay, so that's something you want to pay attention to. Next thing is like, what's their H tags? Okay, they have Miami SEO company for an H tag. They have this for an H tag. Okay. Then they just have something general, optimize your website. And after that, they don't have a ton. They got our latest blog post, and that's it. So they don't have a ton of H tags. You don't want to have like every H tag your keyword, and because the top people aren't doing it. And that's what you always want to compare. So I always compare what do they have in their H tags and how much content do they have, and then what kind of percentage are they using for the keyword? In this case, Miami SEO. All right. So that's where you want to really keep it basic with on-page SEO. Okay, get your keywords. If it can go in your domain, great. If most of the time you're not going to get it in the domain, which is totally fine, unless you're starting a new site that's for a specific keyword. So most times you're not going to have it in your domain. Totally fine. Make sure keywords are in your title and in your inner URL. Okay, that's very important. Then, of course, you want to have some keyword variations in your H tags. You can put, again, look for the top competition, see what they do with their H tags and do something similar. Don't over-optimize content for keywords. So, example, don't keep putting Landenberg SEO, Landenberg SEO, Landenberg SEO nonstop in your content because you don't need to do that. If we go back to the Miami SEO example, they only have it once in their content. They have it in one H tag up here. So they have it right here once, and they have it in their actual content one time. That's it. Again, they're underdoing it because you don't need to overdo it. Overdoing can just get you penalized. Right? So that's that rule there. And then, of course, set your content length and formatting similar to those sites on page one. So I'll usually look at like the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spots, kind of get an average or just a basic look at how much content they have and do something similar, right? So what you'll usually notice is a lot of the people on the first page have the same amount of content. So, maybe everyone on the first page has 700 words of content. In that case, you don't want to come in with a 2,500 word piece of content because it could actually hurt you, and you don't need that much, so you're kind of wasting money and time. So you want to come in with something around 700 just like they do. On the flip end, there's a lot of keywords where maybe it's like a 4,000 word article is the common go-to. Whereas you'll see, number 1 has 4,500, number 2 has 3,500, number 3 has 4,000, number 5 has 4,500, number 6 has 4,200. There's a reason for that. Because like a lot of those I'm doing like for a client now that I'm thinking of, like a lot of the keywords are based around like guides, right? Like for example, keyword optimization guide. Google is smart enough to know that certain keywords like that are going to be longer articles. So if you have a very short article for that, it's going to be harder to rank. So it's very easy to do your on-page SEO when you keep it simple like this. Again, keyword in domain if possible. If not, no worries. Okay, it's going to help you a lot down the road. But if you can't get it there, there's just a lot of cases where we can't. Most of my sites don't have keyword in domain, at least not the exact keyword. In that case, I just try to put it in the inner URL when I set up my inner URL. So I definitely put it in my inner URL. Make sure you put it in your title. Make sure you put keyword variations in your H tags. Don't over-optimize your content for your keywords, and then set your content length and your formatting similar to those sites on page 1. Boom! Your on-page SEO is done. That is it. Don't worry about all the other little crap they tell you is super important, like like having your images optimized for this and that. Yes, that stuff can matter down the road, but what we are just trying to do is get the very basics right that takes care of 95% of our on-page SEO. Yes, we can make little adjustments down the road if we need to, if we're having trouble ranking, but this is the core thing I focus on that helps me rank like 99% of the time. 99% of the time, I'm not even doing anything else with my own page. It's just these 5 things. Okay, I'm not worrying about my image optimization and my social signals and all this other stuff they say is important. It's just these 5 things. Okay, so keep that your focus. Keep things simple, and it will get you much further. Okay, instead of wasting time on things that are going to do either very little to move the needle or almost nothing. All right, so that's the move to off-page focus now. Now, when it comes to off-page SEO, there's really a few things that you got to focus on, okay? Number 1 is you want to get relevant links. Okay, we have ways to do that, which I'm not going to cover in this. I just want to cover how SEO works right now. Relevant links are really king, okay? And really, strong and relevant links, as you can see in point 3, is the holy grail. If you get a strong link that's relevant, that is like the holy grail. That's what's really going to move the needle for you. If you can't get relevant links, you want to try to get strong links, okay? You don't just want to try to get random links that aren't strong or aren't relevant, because that's going to almost send you backwards, and it's going to end up hurting you down the road. And then the last thing is you want to mix in keyword anchor text with your links if possible. So what that means is as you build your link portfolio, you want to make sure some of your links say stuff like Landenberg SEO in them if you're trying to rank for Landenberg SEO, or Miami SEO is a better example because we're actually going to be building links for that site. In that case, I mean, we're going to have to be building a lot more links. So I would want some of my links to say Miami SEO, Miami SEO company. And of course, you want to mix in other variations with your brand name in there and URL links and, click here type stuff. But mixing in keyword anchor can be very powerful. And these are really the few things you have to focus on when it comes to off-page SEO. Strong and relevant links, and then mixing in keyword anchor text, your off-page is done. And really that simple formula of getting your on-page basics right and getting these type of links is going to get you to rank in any niche you want if you can get the right amount of links. You're going to rank wherever you want in any niche. The hardest part is the off-page SEO. Okay, that's the harder part because that's the harder thing to manipulate. Google bases their algorithm off the harder things to manipulate are going to be the bigger ranking factors. Okay, now on-page SEO, very easy to manipulate, but it has to be a big ranking factor to a certain point because they need that data to analyze where the site's going to rank. The problem is you can have 10,000 people with the same on-page SEO, so how are they going to determine which of those people is the best result? Well, then they go to this, okay? And that's why I say off-page is much more important because in any niche that matters, or any keyword that matters, it's going to come down to your off-page SEO, right? Even like low to medium competition niches or keywords, your on-page SEO is still only like 10 to 20%, whereas your off-page SEO is like 80 to 90%, right? And then as you get to the super hard niches, it could come down to like on-page is like 1%, off-page is like 99% of what matters, because you have 100,000 people all with this very similar on-page SEO, which is easy to manipulate. And then you have, okay, well, who has the best links out of all of these people? And that's what it comes down to. All right, so that is kind of the basics of SEO and how it works. Let's move on to the next video.